If I could express what I need to express with math or music or words, I would, but that isn't the channel God gave me. He gave me my hands and my eyes and a sensitivity to see things. One thing about the process is mystery. Honestly, I don't know why I'm doing it most of the time. I'm just being obedient and trusting in spirit. As one of my fellow artists says, getting out of the way so spirit can get the art done. We just start with a description of the project, John. Crossings. I mean, I'd heard about it several years ago, and I thought, wow, that sounds so amazing to put the gospel in a major city in the world.
Toronto means meeting place in Huron. And of course, we are also noted to be the most multicultural city in the world. So crossings seem to be an appropriate title for the intersection of cultures, ideas, ethnicities. And what it means is that we will have these artworks in, as it turns out, 16 different locations. We've chosen to do the scriptural Stations of the Cross that were set out by John Paul II in 1991.
I was just bowled over by all the wonderful art history that's been done for the last 2,000 years about depicting this moment, in the crucifixion narrative. We all have these mental images, particularly in North America, of this tall white guy with a brown beard and long hair, and I was thinking, probably didn't look like that. And you look at the first 1,000 years of art history on this topic, and Christ quite often has short hair.
Yes, that's true.
And then I started thinking about all these. He's been roughed up by the soldiers. He's a real mess, and they're very miserable portrayals of this moment. And I was thinking, but there is a greater truth here. And the truth is that he reached for the cross. And when he reached for the cross and said, I'm here and I'm going to do what I have to do, that was the moment that all history turns on.
The real beauty within the context of the Christian faith is a broken beauty, not an idealized beauty. It doesn't resist or reject brokenness. It embraces it, but it doesn't lose the beauty. In fact, it finds another level of beauty by embracing the brokenness, which is what the cross is. There's a beauty in the love that's at the heart of the story, that it's a self-giving for the sake of the other. What Jesus did is so much embodiment. And there's a spirituality afoot in our culture. Some call it Gnosticism, but it shows up in various quarters, where we think of spirituality as disembodied. And I think that the true spirituality that we're called to, certainly the life of the Christian faith, is an embodied faith. And the fact that this infant of Bethlehem is also this man who walks the Via Dolorosa, that way of sorrows, and gives himself willingly and lovingly as a sacrifice for the world.
Ever since I heard about the project a couple of years ago, I had been thinking about this discovery that I think I told you about that I'd made when I was doing a series of work called Body as Soul. Yes. And I'd been working with human bones and animal bones, and I had taken the sacrum, a single sacrum initially, but then I decided to do a whole bunch of them from different people, from children, old people, young people, different races. And I wondered what would happen if you cast the bone, sculpted the bone first in clay, but then I took my clay portrait of that bone, if you will. It was very, very realistic. I wasn't sort of interpreting wildly. I was really trying to keep with what was there in the bone, and then cast it into lead crystal to see what transparency would reveal about, when you make a bone transparent, you see all this, the relationship of the different aspects of it through it. So you can see a sort of a different truth, a deeper truth. And this amazing thing happened. If you hold it up to a strong source of light, it will reveal a cross, a cruciform figure in the center. And the interesting thing is that each and every sacrum that I did was that way. So I was quite excited about the idea of making this sacrum be the cross that Jesus raises, because of your theme of crossings being about all humanity. And I thought, well, the one thing what's more inclusive than we all have a sacrum? Jesus had a sacrum. I mean, to be human is to have a sacrum. So I just thought this tailbone, this little triangular piece, that's the keystone that forms the arch of the pelvis. Our whole upper body rests on it. Our whole lower body depends from it. It's right in the center of us. Right in the center of us, if you make that bone transparent, there's a cross. And I just thought, oh yeah, that's the cross I want the Christ to be lifting.
I was fascinated when I first met Colleen, because she told us the whole story behind where she's come across this sculpture and what she was trying to achieve through the whole project, which, is looking at some Christian imagery in a slightly different fashion, and to have linked that with something that she'd found through her own personal investigation into the human body and the way that light transmits. There's not many people that would have got to the stage where you can visually see the cross inside an object, and I think from the outset that fascinated us, and to see if we can then replicate that in our material was really an interesting challenge. I mean, it's an insanely organic shape, the sacrum. There's no kind of symmetry to it. There's undercuts, there's surface texture all over, there's holes right through the piece, and all of these things need to be considered when we're either moulding or machining an object. However, we do have an unusual blend of modern technologies and traditional craft here, which have allowed us to work around any of these difficulties. Once we'd scanned it, we created this 3D print. As you can see, the surface details kept all the kind of bone detail that Colleen's put in it, exaggerated because of the scale of it now. We then have taken this and done a kind of really traditional two-part moulding procedure using clay, and that's just to create a split plane in the model to allow us to make the final mould in two parts. Got an awful lot of the artist's own detail in it, a lot of kind of unique mark making that we really want to preserve. So doing this process in a digitised fashion, we would probably lose more of that. We're going to convert this into a rubber version of it, which is then going to allow us to be more flexible when we're trying to extract the piece from the mould material. It'll be okay. There you go.
This is not just a religious story. It is that, of course. It's a deeply human story. It's about betrayal. It's about unjust judgment, and it's about suffering. And you could go on down the list. So we want these stations also not just to speak of the story of Jesus, but to open up our own hearts and minds to see the relevance of this story for social concerns in the culture. Because I think it's got so much to say so much that is going on today.